A warrior leaps a stream. The story says that the diggers at the spot whence the golden light proceeded presently unearthed a bronze bird. Looking at it, Tsao turned to his companion, saying, "What is the portent? You will remember that Shun's mother dreamed of a jade bird before his birth, so certainly it is a felicitous omen," said Sun-yu. Tsao was very pleased, and he ordered forthwith the building of a lofty tower to celebrate the find. And they began to dig foundations and cut timber, to burn tiles, and to smooth bricks for the bronze bird tower on the banks of the Chang River. Tsao set a year for the building. His younger son, Chi, said, "If you build a terrace tower, you should add 2 others, 1 on each side. The center tower and the tallest should be called the Bronze Bird Tower, the side towers named Jade Dragon Tower and Golden Phoenix Tower. Then connect these by flying bridges, and the effect will be noble. My son, your words are very good, and by, when the building is complete, I can solace my old age therein." Tsao had 5 sons, but this one Chi was the most clever, and his essays were particularly elegant. His father was very fond of him, and seeing that the young man took an interest in the building, Tsao left him with his brother Pa at Yechun to superintend the work, while he led the army that had recently conquered the Yuans back to the capital. When he arrived, he distributed rewards liberally, and memorialized the throne, obtaining the title of the Pure Marquis for the late Kuo Chia, and he took Kuo's son to be brought up in his own family. Next he began to consider the reduction of Liu Paio's power. Sun-yu said, "The Grand Army has only just returned from the north and needs rest. Wait half a year that the men may recover from the fatigue of the campaign, and both Liu Paio and Sun Chuan will fall at the first roll of the drums." Presently Tsao approved of this plan, and to rest his men, he assigned certain lands to them till while they rested. Liu Paio had been very generous to Liu Pei ever since he had come, a fugitive seeking shelter. One day at a banquet there came news that 2 captains, who had tendered their submission, had suddenly begun plundering the people in Chiangxia. They evidently meant rebellion. "If they really rebel, it will cause a lot of trouble," said Paio, rather dismayed. "Do not let that trouble you. I will go and settle it," said Pa. Pleased with this proposal, Paio told off 3 legions and placed them under his friend, and the army marched as soon as the orders were issued. In a short time it reached the scene, and the 2 malcontents came out to fight. Yuan-ter and his 2 brothers took their stand beneath the great banner and looked over at the enemy. The 2 leaders were riding handsome, prancing horses, and Yuan-ter said, "They certainly have fine steeds." As he spoke, Ko-yun galloped out with his spear set and dashed toward the enemy. Chang Wu, one of the leaders, came out to meet him, but the combat was very brief, for Chang was soon killed. Thereupon Ko-yun laid a hand upon the bridle of the fallen man's horse to lead him back to his own side. The slain rebel's companion Chern's son at once rode after him, whereupon Chang Fei uttered a loud shout and rode out to meet him. With one thrust he slew the rebel. Their followers now scattered, and Yuan-ter speedily restored order and returned. Liu Paio, grateful for this service, rode out to the boundary to welcome the victors. They re-entered the city, and grand banquets were instituted, at which they emptied great goblets in congratulations over the victory. At one of these banquets the prefect said, "With such heroism as my brother has shown, Qingqiu has one upon whom to rely. But a source of sorrow is the south country Yue, from which a raid may come at any time. Chang Lu and Sun Chuan are to be feared." "But I have 3 bold captains," said Yuan-Ter, "quite equal to any task you can set them. Send Chang Fei to keep ward on the southern marches. Quan Yu to guard the city against Chang Lu, and Ko Yun will protect you from Sun Chuan. Why need you grieve?" The scheme appealed strongly to the prefect, but Tsi Mao did not approve. So he spoke to his sister, Liu Paio's wife, and insisted on the danger of putting these men in such commanding positions all round the prefecture. The lady Tsi, thus influenced by her brother, undertook to remonstrate, and that night began by saying, "The Qingqiu men seem to have a great liking for Liu Pei. They are always coming and going. You ought to take precautions. I do not think you should let them stay in the city. Why not send them on some mission?" "Yuan-Ter is a good man," replied the prefect. "I think others differ from you," said the lady. The prefect said nothing, but muttered to himself. Soon after he went out of the city to see Yuan-Ter and noticed he was riding a very handsome horse. They told him it was a prize taken from the recently conquered rebels, and as he praised it very warmly, the horse was presented to him. Liu Paio was delighted and rode it back to the city. Kui saw it and asked where it had come from. The prefect told him it was a gift from Liu Pa, and Yue said, "My brother knew horses very well, and I am not a bad judge. This horse has tear tracks running down from his eyes and a white blaze on his forehead. He is called a Tilu, and he is a danger to his master. That is why Chang Wu was killed. I advise you not to ride him." The prefect began to think. Soon after he asked Yuan-Ter to a banquet, and in the course of it said, "You kindly presented me with a horse lately, and I am most grateful, but you may need him on some of your expeditions, and, if you do not mind, I would like to return him." Yuan-Ter rose and thanked him. The prefect continued, "You have been here a long time, and I fear I am spoiling your career as a warrior. Now Xinye and Xianjiang is no poverty-stricken town. How would you like to garrison it with your own men?" Yuan-Ter naturally took the offer as a command and set out as soon as he could, taking leave of the prefect the next day. And so he took up his quarters in Xinye. When he left the city, he noticed in the gate a person making him emphatic salutations, and the man presently said, "You should not ride that horse." Yuan-Ter looked at the man and recognized in the speaker one of the secretaries named Aikai, a native of Shanyang. So he hastily dismounted and asked why. Aikai replied, "Yesterday I heard that Kui told the prefect that that horse was a Tilu and brought disaster to its owner. That is why it was returned to you. How can you mount it again?" "I am deeply touched by your affection," replied Yuan-Ter. "But a man's life is governed by fate, and what horse can interfere with that?" Aikai admitted his superior view, but thereafter he followed Yuan-Ter wherever he went. The arrival of Liu Pa in Xinye was a matter of rejoicing to all the inhabitants, and the whole administration was reformed. In the spring of the 12th year, the lady Ken gave birth to a son who was named Chan. The night of his birth, a crane settled on the roof of the house, screeched some 40 times, and then flew away westward. Just at the time of birth, a miraculous incense filled the chamber. Lady Can one night had dreamed that she was looking up at the sky, and the constellation of the Great Bear, Peidu, had fallen down her throat. As she conceived, soon after she gave her son the milk name of O2. While Tsao was absent from the capital on his northern expedition, Liu Pa went to Liu Paio and said to him, "Why do you not take this opportunity to march against the capital? An empire might follow from that." "I am well placed here," was the reply. "Why should I attempt other things?" Yuan-Ter said no more. Then the prefect invited him into the private apartments to drink, and while they were so engaged, he suddenly began to sigh despondently. "Oh brother, why do you sigh thus?" asked Yuan-Ter. "I have a secret sorrow that is difficult to speak about," said Paio. Yuan Ter was on the point of asking what it was when the Lady Tsi came and stood behind the screen, whereat Pyro hung his head and became silent. Before long, host and guest bade each other farewell, and Liu Pa went back to his own place. That winter they heard that Tsao had returned from Liucheng, and Liu Pa sighed, when he reflected that his friend had paid no heed to his advice. Unexpectedly, a messenger came from the principal city, with a request that Liu Pa would go thither to consult with the prefect. So he started at once with the messenger. He was received very kindly, and when the salutations were over, the two men went into the private quarters at the rear to dine. Presently the host said, "Tsao has returned, and he is stronger than ever. I am afraid he means to absorb this district. I am sorry I did not follow your advice, for I have missed an opportunity." In this period of disruption, with strife on every side, one cannot pretend that there will be no more opportunities. If you only take that what offers, there will be nothing to regret. "What you say, brother, is quite to the point," replied Liu Pa. They drank on for a time, till presently Liu Pa noticed that his host was weeping, and when he asked the cause of these tears, Pa replied, "It is that secret sorrow I spoke of to you before. I wished to tell you, but there was no opportunity that day. Oh, brother, what difficulty have you, and can I assist you? I am entirely at your service. My wife of the Chiern family bore me a son, Chi, my eldest. He grew up virtuous but weakly and unfitted to succeed me in my office. Later I took a wife of the Tsi family, who bore me a son named Sung, fairly intelligent. If I pass over the elder in favor of the younger, there is the breach of the rule of primogeniture, and if I follow law and custom, there are the intrigues of the mother's family and clan to be reckoned with. Further, the army is in the hollow of their hands. There will be trouble, and I cannot decide what to do." Liu Pa said, "All experience proves that to set aside the elder for the younger is to take the way of confusion. If you fear the power of the Tsi faction, then gradually reduce its power and influence, but do not let doting affection lead you into making the younger your heir." Pa agreed, but the Lady Tsi had had a suspicion why her lord had summoned Liu Pa and what was the subject of discussion, so she had determined to listen secretly. She was behind the screen when the matter was talked over, and she conceived deep resentment against Liu Pa for what he had said. On his side, he felt that his advice had fallen upon deaf ears, and he arose and walked across the room. As he did so, he noticed that he was getting heavy and stiff, and a furtive tear stole down his cheek as he thought of the past. When he returned and sat down, his host noticed the traces of weeping, and asked the cause of his sorrow. "In the past, I was always in the saddle, and I was slender and lithe. Now it is so long since I rode that I am getting stout, and the days and months are slipping by, wasted. I shall have old age on me in no time, and I have accomplished nothing. So I am sad. I have heard a story that when you were at Sucheng at the season of green plums, you and Tsao were discussing heroes. You mentioned this name, and that to him as men of parts, and he rejected every one of them. Finally, he said that you and he were the only two men of real worth in the whole country. If he with all his power and authority did not dare to place himself in front of you, I do not think you need grieve about having accomplished nothing." At this flattering speech, Liu Pa pretended that the wine was getting the better of him, and in a half-maudlin manner he replied, "If I only had a starting point, then I would not trouble about anyone in a world full of fools." His host said no more, and the guest, feeling that he had slipped up in speech, rose as if drunk, took leave and staggered out, saying he must return to his lodging to recover. The episode has been celebrated in a poem. When with crooking fingers counting, Tsao reckoned up the forceful men of real determination, only two he found, and one was Yuan-Ter. But by inaction he had grown both fat and slothful, yet the months and years in passing fretted him with naught accomplished. Though Liu Pio kept silence when he heard the words of Yuan-Ter, yet he felt the more uneasy. After the departure of his guest, he retired into the inner quarters where he met his wife. The lady Tsi said, "I happened to be behind the screen just now and so heard the words of Liu Pa. They betray scant regard for other people and mean that he would take your country if he could. If you do not remove him, it will go ill with you." Her husband made no reply, but only shook his head. Then the lady Tsi took counsel with her kinsman Tsi Mao, who said, "Let me go to the guest house and slay him forthwith, and we can report what we have done." His sister consented, and he went out, and that night told off a party of soldiers to do the foul deed. Now Yuan-Ter sat in his lodging by the light of a single candle till about the third watch, when he prepared to retire to bed. He was startled by a knock at his door, and in came Ikai, who had heard of the plot against his new master and had come in the darkness to warn him. He related the details of the plot and urged speedy departure. "I have not said farewell to my host. How can I go away?" said Liu Pa. "If you go to bid him farewell, you will fall a victim to the Tsi faction," said Ikai. So Yuan-Ter said a hasty goodbye to his friend, called up his escort, and they all mounted and rode away by the light of the stars toward Sinye. Soon after they had left, the soldiers arrived at the guest house, but their intended victim was already well on his way. Naturally, the failure of the plot chagrined the treacherous Tsi Mao, but he took the occasion to scribble some calumnious verses on one of the partitions. Then he went to see Liu Pio, to whom he said, "Liu Pa has treacherous intentions, as can be seen from some lines written on the wall, and his hurried departure is suspicious." Liu Pio felt doubtful, but he went to the guest house, and there on the wall he read this poem: "Too long, far too long I have dreamed life away, gazing at scenery day after day. A dragon can never be kept in a pond. He should ride on the thunder to heaven and beyond." Greatly angered by what he read, Liu Pio drew his sword and swore to slay the rider. But before he had gone many paces, his anger had already died down, and he said to himself, "I have seen much of the man, but have never known him write verses. This is the handiwork of someone who wishes to sow discord between us." So saying, he turned back, and with the point of his sword scraped away the poem. Then, putting up his sword, he mounted and rode home. By and by Tsi Mao reminded him that the soldiers were awaiting orders and asked whether they could go to Sinye and arrest Liu Pa. "There is no hurry," he replied. Tsi Mao saw his brother-in-law's hesitation and again sought his sister. She said, "Soon there is to be the great gathering at Sinye, and we can arrange something for that day." Next day Tsi Mao petitioned the prefect, saying, "I pray you, sir, to attend the full harvest festival at Sinye. It would be an encouragement to the people. I have been feeling my old trouble lately. I certainly cannot go," replied he, "but my 2 sons can go to represent me and receive the guests." "They are full young," replied Mao. "They may make some mistakes." "Then go to Sinye and request Liu Pa to receive the guests," said Pio. Nothing could have pleased Tsi Mao more, for this would bring Liu Pa within reach of his plot. Without loss of time, he sent to Yuan-Ter requesting him to go to preside at the festival. It has been said that Yuan-Ter made the best of his way home to Sinye. He felt that he had offended by that slip in speech, but determined to keep silence about it and attempt no explanation. So he discussed it with nobody. Then came the message asking him to preside at the festival, and he needed counsel. Sun Xiaqin said, "You have seemed worried and preoccupied lately, and I think something untoward happened at Qingqiu. You should consider well before you accept this invitation." Thereupon Yuan Ter told his confidants the whole story. Guan Yu said, "You yourself think your speech offended the prefect, but he said nothing to show displeasure. You need pay no attention to the babble of outsiders. Xiangyang is quite near, and if you do not go, Liu Qinchu will begin to suspect something really is wrong." "You speak well," said Yuan Ter. Said Chang Fei, "Banquets are no good, gatherings are no better, it is best not to go. Let me take 300 horse and foot as escort. There will be no trouble then," said Ko Yun. "That is the best course," said Yuan Ter. They soon set out for the gathering place, and Mao met them at the boundary and was most affable and courteous. Soon arrived the prefect's sons at the head of a great company of officers, civil and military. Their appearance put Yuan Ter more at ease. He was conducted to the guest house, and Ko Yun posted his men so as to guard it completely, while he himself, armed, remained close to his chief. Liu Chi said to Yuan Ter, "My father is feeling unwell and could not come, wherefore he begs you, Uncle Liu, to preside at the various ceremonies and conduct the inspections." "Really, I am unfit for such responsibilities," said Yuan Ter, "but my brother's command must be obeyed." Next day it was reported that the officials from the 41 departments of the 9 districts had all arrived. Then Mao said to Kui, "This Liu Pa is the villain of the age, and if left alive will certainly work harm to us. He must be got rid of now." "I fear you would forfeit everybody's favor if you harmed him," replied Kui. "I have already secretly spoken in these terms to Prefect Liu," said "and I have his word here. So it may be regarded as settled, then we can prepare." Mao said, "One of my brothers is posted on the road to the Hsin Hills from the east gate, and the others are on the north and south roads. No guard is needed on the west, as the Tian torrent is quite safeguard enough. Even with legions, he could not get over that." Kui replied, "I notice that Ko Yun never leaves him. I feel sure he expects some attack. I have placed 500 men in ambush in the city. We will tell Wen Piying and Wang Wei to invite all the military officers to a banquet at one of the pavilions outside the city, and Ko Yun will be among them. Then will be our opportunity." Mao thought this a good device for getting Ko Yun out of the way. Now oxen and horses had been slaughtered and a grand banquet prepared. Yuan Ter rode to the residence on the horse of ill omen, and when he arrived the steed was led into the back part of the enclosure and tethered there. Soon the guests arrived, and Yuan Ter took his place as master of the feast, with the 2 sons of the prefect, one on each side. The guests were all arranged in order of rank. Ko Yun stood near his lord's sword in hand, as a faithful henchman should do. Then Wen and Wang came to invite Ko Yun to the banquet they had prepared for the military officers, but he declined. However, Yuan Ter told him to go, and after some demur he went. Then Mao perfected his final arrangements, placing his men surrounding the place like a ring of iron. The 300 guards that formed the escort of Yuan Ter were sent away to the guest house. All were ready and awaiting the signal. At the 3rd course, Kai took a goblet of wine in his hands and approached Yuan Ter, at the same time giving him a meaning look. Then in a low voice he said, "Make an excuse to get away." Yuan Ter understood and presently rose as if stiff with long sitting and went outside. There he found Kai, who had gone thither after presenting the cup of wine. Kai then told him more of the plot, and that all the roads were guarded except that to the west, and he advised him to lose no time. Yuan Ter was quite taken aback. However, he got hold of the horse of ill omen, opened the door of the garden and led him out. Then he took a flying leap into the saddle and galloped off without waiting for the escort. He made for the west gate. At the gate the wardens wanted to question him, but he only whipped up his steed and rode through. The guards at the gate ran off to report to TSI Mao, who quickly went in pursuit with a half-company of soldiers. As has been said, Yuan-Ter burst out at the west gate. Before he had gone far there rolled before him a great river barring the way. It was the Tian, many score feet in width, which pours its waters into the Hsiang. Its current was very swift. Yuan-Ter reached the bank and saw the river was unfordable, so he turned his horse and rode back. Then not far off, he saw a cloud of dust and knew that his pursuers were therein. He thought that it was all over. However, he turned again toward the swift river, and seeing the soldiers now quite near, plunged into the stream. A few paces, and he felt the horse's 4 legs floundering in front while the water rose over the skirt of his robe. Then he plied the whip furiously, crying, "Tilu, Tilu, I trust to you." Whereupon the good steed suddenly reared up out of the water and, with one tremendous leap, was on the western bank. Yuan-Ter felt as if he had come out of the clouds. In after years, the famous court official, Su Tieng-po, wrote a poem on this leap over the Tian torrent. "I'm growing old, the leaves are sere. My sun slopes westward, soon will sink, and I recall that yesteryear I wandered by Tian river brink. Irresolute, anon I paused, anon advanced and gazed around. I marked the autumn's reddened leaves, and watched them eddying to the ground. I thought of all the mighty deeds of him who set the house of Han on high, and all the struggles since, the battlefields, the blood that ran. I saw the nobles gathered round the board, set in the banquet hall. Amid them, one, above whose head there hung a sword about to fall. I saw him quit that festive throng and westward ride, a lonely way. I saw a squadron follow swift, intent the fugitive to slay. I saw him reach the river Tian, whose swirling current rushes by. Adown the bank he galloped fast, now leap, my steed. I heard him cry. His steed's hoofs churn the swollen stream. What recks he that the waves run high? He hears the sound of clashing steel, of thundering squadrons coming nigh. And upward from the foaming waves I saw 2 peerless beings soar. One was a destined western king, and him another dragon bore. The Tian still rolls from east to west, its roaring torrent ne'er dry. Those dragons twain, ah, where are they? Yes, where? But there is no reply. The setting sun, in dark relief against the glowing western sky, throws out the everlasting hills while, saddened, here I stand and sigh. Men died to found the kingdoms 3, which now as misty dreams remain. Of greatest deeds the traces oft are faint that fleeting years retain. Thus Liu Pie crossed the rolling river. Then he turned and looked back at the other bank which his pursuers had just gained. "Why did you run away from the feast?" called out TSI Mao. "Why did you wish to harm one who has done you no injury?" replied Yuan-Ter. "I have never thought of such a thing. Do not listen to what people say to you." But Yuan-Ter saw that his enemy was fitting an arrow to his bowstring, so he whipped up his steed and rode away southwest. "What spirits aided him?" said TSI Mao to his followers. Then he turned to go back to the city, but in the gate he saw Ko Yun coming out at the head of his company of guards. By wondrous leap the dragon steed his rider's life could save. Now follows him, on vengeance bent, his master's henchman brave. The next chapters will tell what fate befell the traitor.